When I was traveling, I always heard people that were saying that traveling was very expensive, that they couldn't go to this place because it was expensive, or I couldn't get even a flight ticket because it was not possible. And I agree, somehow.
It's very expensive.
But then, when you save enough money to get a flight ticket, now the question is how much I'm going to spend in the cities that I will go, or the places in general, because everything that you do outside have a cost. So I was hearing people saying that, man, you spend 1,000 euros each week in Paris. And you know what? It's possible. If you do what everyone does, that is going to expensive museums, if you go to expensive restaurants, or if you just go to any kind of activity that involves money. Even a coffee in Paris can be 6 euros. And yeah, I spent once 6 euros for espresso.
How's that even possible?
But actually, traveling, it doesn't have to be expensive. Why? Because you don't have to do what everyone does. I'm going to debunk some myths about high-cost travel. For example, it's a myth that you have to save a lot of money to travel. Actually, the only thing that you have to do is to save enough money for the flight ticket and then to have an extra amount of money for the things that you need to survive, for example, for food, transportation, and maybe some things that are related with insurances and medicines, or just some extra money just in case. But after that doesn't have to be a lot. Why? Because if you learn how to make a cultural travel, you can save the accommodation and you can stay with locals or with friends or friends of friends.
Hey, what's up?
I need a place to crash.
So another myth is like you have to pay a lot of money in transportation. And actually I have to say that that's not true. Because there are many ways of getting a cheap transportation and they don't have to be bad actually. For example, the most popular one is hitchhiking. I'm not an expert of hitchhiking, but I know that there are a lot of people in the world that they share cars with others in the highway. You know, when you stay in the middle of the road and you try to get a free ride. And most of people actually travel around many countries doing that. I remember that I met once a Czech girl who was traveling like this in Mexico. And you might think that it's really dangerous to do that. But if you know how to do it, it can be a very good way for traveling cheap. And other kind of ways is to get, for example, cheap flights in airlines that are not that expensive, or even buses with no brands. Maybe they are not the best transportations, but you can save a lot of money taking these ones. And then you can save this money for using it for other things that you will need eventually. And the last myth is you need a lot of money to make a long travel. Well, guess what? You can actually travel for less than 10 euros each day or even less. For example, now I'm traveling here in Macedonia and I have just spent 1 euro in average every day. And you can do it in many ways. For example, volunteering with friends, sharing meals with people, or just in many other ways. And finding friends where you can stay with and you can cooperate each other. So, you can actually travel for many months. Here in this masterclass, I'm going to teach you the skills that you need to make this travel affordable. But not only that, to do it throughout service and something that is important, that is love. And I will tell you later why this is important. So to let it clear, traveling doesn't have to be expensive. But the ways that you travel can define how much money you spend or how much money you save. So, see you in the next lecture.